Hi guys, welcome to the Invicta Gaming Podcast. Today we're doing a little Ubisoft chat. I'm joined with my friend Gareth, again, from the Last of Us discussion video.
Hello.
How are you doing, Gareth?
Yeah, I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, no worries, man. The last one was pretty good. Like, we've had quite a few downloads on that already. We've had a fair amount of dislikes on the YouTube channel, but, you know, it was always going to be...
That's part of the course, right? Yeah.
Of course, yeah. That was always going to be part of it. So, I mean, Ubisoft have just done their Ubisoft Forward thing, which I guess is their version of, like, State of Play, or I can't remember what the Nintendo one's called. But
yeah, they're kind of little E3 replacement jobby.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of these, right? Like, these online, straight-to-broadcast, no sort of, like, bells and whistles, just people telling you about games that are coming up. I quite like them. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice replacement to the whole, like, sit for a weekend and watch, like, endless E3, press conferences. It's like, oh, you get your little kind of bite-sized chunk of E3, go on your merry way, you know?
Yeah, I kind of missed, like, the hype and the cynicism surrounding E3 when we'd all, like, be like, boo, advertising, boo, microtransactions.
Right, absolutely.
But no, this is cool. I like this. It's very much just, like, straight to the important parts, like the games.
Yeah.
Lots of cinematic trailers, but I feel like we saw quite a lot of gameplay from this event. There was a good chunk of gameplay for stuff.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed, actually. I was taking notes throughout the thing, and every single game it was like, here's a bunch of CG first, and they're talking about gameplay stuff, and you're like, are they going to show gameplay? And then they show you like a big chunk of gameplay, and it's like, could you have not just like skipped the CG trailers? Like, games look good enough nowadays. You know, we're about to be heading into next gen. Everything, you know, cutscene wise is now like in engine. Like, do we really need the CG stuff first?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about that.
I quite like the CG stuff just as a it's almost like here's kind of our vision for the game, like cut together.
Yeah, I
nice
noticed
and
that
condensed.
they were like kind of doing a lot of like tone setting and kind of here's the vibe and atmosphere we're going for. But then you kind of see the gameplay and it doesn't quite like live up to their cinematic like proof of concept.
Yeah, but it sets the stage for like what they're aiming for. Like, if you were pitching a game to a developer, you'd be like, you put together a little reel, obviously not that polished, but it'd be like, here's kind of the thing we want to go for, and then obviously they have to go off and realize that, given the limitations of like whatever they're working with, which in this case is like the PlayStation 4. I think they are doing a PlayStation 5 version, but I know that this has been primarily developed for current gen. Yeah,
this seems like a very kind of cross-gen sort of display of games. Like, everything's like, oh, WATCHDOGS is out on PS4, Assassin's Creed is out on PS4, so on and so forth. We don't know about Far Cry. I'm assuming that'll be cross-gen as well. And then they're like, oh yes, but the next gen will have like ray tracing like tacked on or something like that.
I think Far Cry might be a little bit more next gen-ish, because I think that's coming out February 2021.
February 18th, yeah.
Oh, you know the date. Oh, I just knew the month, but you know the actual day, so fair enough.
I took notes, man.
But yeah, that's like February next year, so I'm imagining that's a little bit later than these games. So they showed like...
Yeah, I mean, one can hope.
Yeah, so they showed like a bunch of mobile games, which is not my cup of tea personally. It might be other people's. They had a few updates for things like Ghost Recon, which again, is that your... Do you like Ghost Recon? Those type of games?
Well, it wasn't Ghost Recon. They showed off a bit of like Siege. Like, hey, Siege is still a thing.
That's the one, Siege.
I used to really like Siege when it came out, but then it became like a bit too much of a kind of hero shooter for my taste, and like the aesthetic of the game changed a lot to go with it. You know, like all the operators / heroes have to look like really different, right? So they kind of leaned more into this less like realistic and tactical vibe into more of a, this guy looks fucking crazy, she has paint on her face. Like, it kind of lost me, but you know, it's clearly still a very popular game, lots of people playing it. I remember hearing that about a year after launch, more people were playing it than at launch, which is really cool, because
it's definitely one of those games that, like, and Ubisoft have got to be like the masters of this, where they bring out a game, it flops or it doesn't do great, and then they spend a long time, you know, working on it, and then the No Man's Sky effect, basically. It's like, and
the kind of the 2020 like games as a service model, where like things can drastically change and improve. And I mean, Siege has held its own, man. It's absolutely held its own within the market. Like, it's still really popular. It's still really popular as an esport type of game. Like, fair play.
What are they doing for Siege then? What's their new, like, what were they announcing?
I don't think they really announced anything at the show, but they did
just
see
said
a
Siege,
roadmap
it's a
of
thing.
Yeah, that was literally the gist of it. I think was like, hey, Siege is still out there. But I think their roadmap includes some kind of overhauls to kind of the foundations of the game, because now, you know, the game has changed a lot with all the new operators and all that kind of stuff. So I think they're addressing some kind of balance issues. I think they've got plans for another couple of new operators, new maps, etc., etc.
That sounds cool. I mean, if you're into that thing, that sounds cool. I don't mean that derogatory. It's really not my cup of tea. Like,
it's nice that they're continuing to support it, because I mean, I don't think that Ubisoft have really got another like flagship multiplayer only game, and I suppose that's kind of where
Ghost Recon maybe. We got Ghost Recon.
Well, I suppose so. I mean, that's more of a kind of co-op Destiny-esque space rather than like a hardcore competitive sort of game.
Yeah,
I suppose is where Hyperscape comes in. You know, they're trying to like fill that little hole in the market. They, you know, Siege is going to die at some point. They're not going to support it forever. So like, oh, here's another kind of new multiplayer game to hopefully like pick up the slack in the future.
It looks cool, Hyperscape. So it's like a hero shooter, battle royale, you know, roll your eyes. I certainly did. But I mean,
yes.
Again, in the battle royale space, you've got to kind of innovate. There really is no room to just be like another thing that looks like everything else. But
Absolutely,
from what I saw,
yeah.
it looks cool. It looks kind of like futuristic. I guess you're in some kind of like sort of cyberpunk-esque looking city. It looks a bit like a Ready Player One to me.
I was getting kind of shades of like, I don't know, like Techno Dishonored or something.
Techno Dishonored.
Yeah. Like there was something kind of cool about the architecture of the map to me. From what I could tell, it had like a mix.
I can see that.
Yeah, they had a mixture of like kind of AC Unity, Paris meets Dishonored's kind of gothic architecture meets like cyberpunk WATCHDOGS mishmash, Overwatch something. It's kind of cool.
It would be interesting to see Ubi doing a really big sort of battle royale thing, because you just never know with these things. Like, I'd say 8 out of 10 battle royales don't do great. They just kind of live and then die very quickly. And then occasionally you have ones that like blow up and then sort of trail off. And then there's one Fortnite.
Yeah, the battle royale space is kind of interesting in that, like, as you say, a lot of the stuff doesn't kind of hit, but then sometimes a battle royale game just comes out of nowhere and kind of sidelines everyone. Like Apex Legends had that sort of effect. Like no one expected that to be good, but it held its own amongst the kind of the big league games. And then Warzone came out and everyone was like, huh, Warzone's really fucking good, which it is. And now they've upped that to 200 players, and that seems to be like the dominant casual battle royale.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Warzone. And then there's God, what is that one? Hunt Showdown is another one I've heard good things about.
Yeah, that's less of a battle royale, more of a kind of PvPvE.
It's kind of battle royale.
There's a hint of it, yeah. Yeah.
You have these like, and what I'm saying is, you have the kind of the big, massive mainstream ones that like even your parents have heard about type thing. And then you've got the ones that kind of like do something a bit weird with the formula that aren't like, they're not doing gangbusters, but they're also kind of like building their own fan base kind of slowly. Maybe it'll fit into
they have
their
niche.
Maybe it'll go gangbusters. I'm not sure. But yeah, it looks fine. Like I won't play it because battle royales are just not my thing. They give me anxiety. But
yeah, the art style kind of wasn't really my thing. You know, I remember in the conference there was a short segment of them like talking a big game about the character designs and how they tried to make it all feel like, oh, would this person want this tattoo? Is that how they'd express themselves in this VR world? And I was just thinking like,
yeah.
That just looks like a bunch of like bog standard like pseudo Pixar Overwatch-esque design where like, you know, it's not realistic, it's kind of cartoony. They're talking such a big game about it, and I was like, I don't care, you know?
Yeah, they were really talking about the design of this character who, like you said, just looked fine. You know, like they looked just like they were just really like a normal person. And they were like, we were thinking about, would this character wear this? And I'm just thinking like, do players care? Honestly, like, are the hours this person as a developer is putting into this like actually paying off in something tangible that a player will care about?
For real. It had a very kind of design by committee sort of vibe to the character designs. Yeah.
Because I was listening to it while I was cooking and kind of like looking over. Obviously, I paid more attention to some of the other bits, but like some of the ones I knew I was like lukewarm on. and she was talking about this, and I thought, oh my god, like I can't wait to look around on my phone and see this design. And then I did, and I was like, oh, I mean, like,
wow, is that it? Like,
okay. Yeah. Oh, I guess that's just like a normal hero shooter kind of vibe. But whatever, man. Like, they look nice, cool.
Yeah, it looks okay.
Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get into like the big three, I would say?
Well, I guess, I mean, this is kind of an odd aside, perhaps, but Ubisoft, as of late, have had this kind of reputation for kind of constantly churning out games that are steeped in like this political sort of dialogue and trappings. Like, you know, Watch Dogs, they're like, oh no, Watch Dogs isn't a political game. The Division isn't a political game, and it's all about like
really
the decay
political
of society and like militarization and all this kind of stuff. And I noticed with all of these new Ubisoft games that they're showing off, there was this huge like social critique, social analysis kind of vibe to the world building.
Especially in the Far Cry trailer. The Far Cry trailer was like a dictatorship being like crushing his people. Like, that was very on the nose.
And then we have the Watch Dogs thing, you know, like a terrorist attack happens, and you know, it's kind of, it's all a bit up in the air whether that's an actual terrorist attack or whether it's like the rebellion. Well, and then they bring in a PMC, and it's all a bit like close to home in 2020, you know. And I just kept thinking like, oh,
political? Because
Ubisoft keeps saying none of the games that they're releasing are political, and I just kept thinking like, oh yeah, this is apolitical Ubisoft in action.
But the pitch for Watch Dogs was literally, the pitch for Watch Dogs was literally in a post-Brexit Britain. Like, that's the most political pitch ever. That's about as much as it gets. Like, that's like starting a game like in a post-Trump America. Like, but wait, we're not political.
Yeah. yeah. They can say it's not political all they want, but like they keep kind of leaning on this political diatribe thing. And I guess again, just as a kind of facet of this observation, like I kept thinking to myself, like, is this actually gonna like lead to anything in the story, or is it just like literally kind of window dressing and setting? And
it's not. Of course it won't.
No, I don't think so. Especially they will
use the imagery, but they won't make a statement. This is what games do. They say they like, it's a good setup, isn't it? Like, after Brexit, like the police state has moved in, but they're not going to draw any conclusions on the end, like say this is bad, like, because that causes a backlash. They'll just say this is like how it is. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a shame, because Ubisoft's got a lot of talented people working for their various studios, man. You know, like we can all say whatever the fuck we want about Ubisoft, but we all play their games. You know, there's a lot of talented people there, and it's just a shame they aren't kind of able to stretch their wings a little bit more and kind of follow through on those themes that they're constantly setting up. But again, it was just kind of an observation.
That's Ubisoft in a nutshell for me. Like, they've got all this talent, and they've clearly got something there that's good, but they always fall short of being great. Do you know what I mean? They're always just quite good.
They kind of lean back on the kind of popcorn candy floss kind of games where it's just like, it's a big time sink, it's kind of good fun, but there's nothing nutritional about it.
I think the last Ubisoft game I played was like Assassin's Creed, was it Odyssey? Yeah, Odyssey.
Yeah, the Greek one, yeah.
The Greek one. And it's like, I've never played a game that I put so many hours into that I really hated by the end. Like, I put 100 hours into it, and every asset of it annoyed the fuck out of me. like all of it annoyed me.
I see what you mean. Like, Odyssey especially, like, compared to, say, Origins.
Origins was great. I loved Origins.
Origins was fantastic. I personally really liked Odyssey as well. I've got about 135 hours in that game with all the DLCs done.
I must have liked it. I put 100 hours in, but like...
Exactly. On some level, you think... Yeah, on some level, it's like, it's kind of satisfying, it's compelling enough for you to keep playing it for hours on end, but then you come away from it and you think, God, did that like mean anything at all? Like, no, it didn't.
And it's the worst game for me where, like, I'm a big story person in games. I really like story. I do not skip cutscenes in games, but my God, I was skipping the hell out of the cutscenes in Odyssey. Everyone was like,
there's a lot of fluff in Odyssey. Absolutely. So that game is kind of too big.
Way too big. Like,
yeah,
they look beautiful, the places you go to. Like, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But there are like 20 too many islands, and the fact that the main story you've only seen like 40% of the game by the time you finish the main story, that's fucked up, man.
Yeah,
like make your game smaller for God's sake.
I've still got like hundreds of like treasure spots and animal caves and bandit camps that I haven't done yet because like it's actually not even content at this point.
It's not. It's just things on a checklist to do. Like I would rather have a game like half the size, a third of the size, and just like 3 times more meaningful. And it's not even about density. Like the worlds are very dense, but once you've seen 1 or 2, you get to a new island and you're like, okay, I've not seen this exact island, but I really feel like I've been here already.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel the same. And to just kind of wind it back to that point I was making about like, you know, apolitical Ubisoft, I would love to see them tackle something a bit more like, you know, linear, like set up this world, set up this kind of trapping and this narrative, and then like follow through with it and kind of be done in like, you know, 12, 20 hours and cut all the fluff. Like I would love to see that.
I would love to see that too, but I remember seeing a quote from like it was either like a head of Ubisoft or like a head of a big part of Ubisoft, and he was like, "We have no plans to do these type of games. We are gonna plow on with
the open world cash cow keeps people coming back. It keeps them buying microtransactions. It's not going away anytime soon."
So while we're on the topic of Assassin's Creed, we might as well start with Valhalla, which I've got some mixed opinions of. Like at first, I was a bit cold on it. Like I thought, I didn't really watch much of the footage. I just like kind of saw little overviews of it, and I thought, God, this is like exactly like Odyssey, and it definitely has that like Ubisoft sheen to it. But I watched after I watched the presentation. I thought, like, for a start, this looks like The Witcher world, and like I love The Witcher 3, so
it looks very much like The Witcher, doesn't it? Yeah. But I suppose, you know, The Witcher is like based off a, you know, filthy, shitty medieval England, and it is set in filthy, shitty medieval England. So there you go.
Yeah, it's got that swampy, like you said, filthy, shitty medieval England vibe to it. It looks really good, like, in terms of the setting. I'm into that. Yeah. I definitely think, I don't know, Ubisoft need to get away from this, just, like, Ubisoft look to their games. I don't just mean in, like, the graphics and stuff. Like, the user interface is just identical from game to game, and it just gives this sense that you've just, like, done this already.
I noticed as well, all the games had like really beautiful lighting, really beautiful animation systems, which is probably because, you know, they're all sharing like their engine tech and they're kind of homogenizing their engine. But I noticed that like with all the beautiful lighting, every single game had awful faces and awful hair.
Oh my God, yes. Like I hate the animation in like Ubisoft faces and people, and just they look awful. They look so bad.
It's so cardboard, man. Yeah.
The worst for this was what was that racing game they did that was like the biggest thing, and it was just trash. Like I'm a huge racing game.
Oh, was it the one where it was like the whole of the United States?
Yes.
The Crew.
My God, The Crew 2. It was The Crew 2. I played that, and it's like it's fun for about 5 hours because you can turn from a car into a plane. That's cool. Like that is fun.
That's pretty cool.
Like, and then you can turn back from like a plane into a boat, and that is a cool novelty. But my God, the world is just like this cardboard nothingness for ages. Like I was just in shock when I was playing it. Like I am a bit of a graphics snob, but I'm not to the point where like I will just completely write off a game solely based on the graphics.
Sure.
But yeah, man. I was just like, really, like cut this world down by like 90% and give me a racing game like that. And especially when you've got like Forza out there. There is no excuse to have a racing game with a world that bad.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play it. A friend of mine was saying that he really liked it as kind of a nice, like, bubblegum time sink sort of game.
It is. You know, it's fine for that. It's fine for that. And it is fun with the whole, like, novelty of changing, you know, car to plane back to
Transformers,
or whatever.
Basically.
Yeah, it was totally Transformers, but, like, just on the topic of, like, Ubisoft graphics, I thought that is definitely holding true for Valhalla. Like, beautiful looking world, clunky-ish looking animations, and just terrible looking faces and dialogue.
Apparently the animations are kind of not quite done yet, like the animation systems and the animation blending. Like that's something that Assassin's Creed is typically like really, really good at. And I think that's where they're sharing their animation tech from, is the Assassin's Creed team. I noticed in WATCHDOGS, we keep getting on tangents, but it's kind of hard not to, considering how homogenous it all is. But with WATCHDOGS, there was like absolutely there was a bit in the WATCHDOGS footage where like some guy was doing like very Assassin's Creed looking parkour, and I thought, God, that looks fucking great. I love that Ass Creed like animation system. It's always so smooth, and Valhalla does look a little bit clunky at the minute, but you know, they've said it's in beta stage right now, and it's kind of, you know, they're going to polish all that stuff up. So
I love the idea.
Hopefully
that you
that's
could,
the case.
Climb to the top of Big Ben and then like jump off into a hay barrel. Off the top of Big Ben.
Just a classic AC maneuver right there.
The classic AC maneuver.
AC for me is definitely one of those like popcorn games, and I play it every year. Every single Assassin's Creed. I think the only one I haven't finished from the mainline series was Syndicate. For some reason, I didn't really like that game very much. I
came away from it for a while and then came back to it at Origins and was really sold on the kind of the changes that they made into like a more... I mean, on the one hand, you do lose a little bit of that whole like assassin thing when you put the RPG elements in. Like you would leap from the sky and then like stick your knife into some guy's neck, and all you've done is like reduce his health by like 10 points, and you're like, well that's not very assassiny, is it?
on the subject of like assassination mechanics, they're bringing back the social stealth, like blending in with crowds and kind of hiding on like park benches and stuff like that, which I'm fucking here for. Like I liked Origins and I liked Odyssey a lot, but like the stealth there was more of a kind of like MGS Phantom Pain super light, where it's like it's combat stealth.
You'd break into like a fortress, and you just kind of go around the top wall for a while, steadily picking off like mindless goons who are just really dumb. And then like rinse and repeat. But we haven't really had
the social. Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say it might be nice to kind of return back to the whole like blending in plain sight kind of thing, and like, you know, the guy, he puts his hood up and suddenly he becomes invisible, which is hilarious. But like
video games, right?
But video games.
I mean, it's kind of satisfying. Like AC kind of always had that aspect where you could kind of play it as a more conventional stealth game. You could parkour up the side of the building and go that way. You could just murder everyone. You could use sleep darts, or you could, you know, blend in with a crowd and kind of work your way up to a target that way. And it's nice to see that returning, but in this new format that they've kind of been developing since, you know, this like soft reboot trilogy has kind of begun. I'm kind of into that.
Good. Yeah, I'm into that too.
Yeah,
and like the parkour is always good in Assassin's Creed. I remember playing.
It is.
When I was playing Origins, if I ever went to like another game, like I think I played GTA 5 after, just because that's like popcorn.
Yeah.
But the fact that I was like running up to any object that I didn't even have to climb, like there was a clear path to where I needed to go, but I just wanted to climb over all these things, and I was like, oh, I can't.
You're like, oh yeah, I'll go up this wall, over onto the roof, I'll hop onto the other one, and
I can't do that in this game. Like, but yeah, I really like the way that like everything is just traversable, and they changed the parkour to just like one button, like X and forwards. Yeah, you can parkour everything. So yeah,
super smooth.
Valhalla looks cool. It looks like it's just kind of like adding some stuff to the last formula rather than kind of like totally redoing it.
Yeah, sure. I like the raiding mechanics and the sieges. I think they look really, really cool. But by the end of the game, you'll probably have done about like 50 of each and be totally fucking sick of it because you've been overexposed, just like every other Assassin's Creed game. But
well, this is what I'm hoping they won't do, because like initially they said, "Oh, we're going to do a smaller world this time," and I was like, "Yes, good. This is good."
Yeah.
And then they said, "Wait, actually, this is the biggest one yet," and you're like, "Well, I mean, which is it?"
Well, which is it, my dudes? Yeah.
Maybe they mean like the story is going to be more focused, but the world is going to be bigger. I mean, which I would hope is not the case. I'd rather it was the opposite. Like, the story in the last two was already too long, but like the world's been so big. It's just, I hate it. I honestly hate it.
I could definitely go for like just a shorter AC by like a good amount of hours. Like Odyssey, you know, I kept playing it, and I still play it, but it's so long. It's so fucking long. Like,
and it just
Assassin's Creed 2 was probably like it was probably like a 30, 40 hour game, you know, like the first couple, if that. And now they're like up to 120. Like, you need to bring it back a little bit, guys.
And the side missions, like, the only game that I've seen do a really long campaign and somehow keep the content fresh all the way through was The Witcher 3. Like, the amount of work that goes into a game like that. I mean, look at how long CD Projekt are putting into Cyberpunk. I imagine they're going to try and do the same thing. Like, it's not a 2-year release cycle. Do you know what I mean? It's just not. To do those kind of games is, if at the length you want to do them, is like a 7-year thing. Do you know what I mean? It's just so much work.
Yeah.
And they have 2 protagonists as well, don't they? So they have to do everything like twice.
Yeah, ostensibly, but they just have to kind of re-record every line of dialogue with like different pronouns, I guess. But, like all the content in these games is so kind of like throwaway, and they have like, God, I remember seeing the credits for one of the Assassin's Creed games, and there was like 10 studios of various Ubisoft, studios around the world, all kind of chipping in. There must have been like 900, 1,000 people that worked on this specific AC game. I don't remember which it was, but I remember
Ubisoft
thinking at the time, like, that's
studio. Just a huge
it's just
studio.
ridiculous. It's like,
Sorry, I was just going to say, it's almost like too many cooks in like a situation. Like you almost feel like if you've got a smaller team, but you've got a vision, everyone's kind of on board towards the same kind of thing. But like the bigger and bigger and bigger it gets, it's like every decision has to go through so many different like departments, and like every department has to keep in touch, and eventually it just like it's no surprise that we've got the kind of Ubisoft games that we've got if it's that big. It's
absolutely
just so much, like, designed by committee, homogenization,
mountains of content, all incredibly smooth, all incredibly easy, no challenge to it. You just kind of consume it on autopilot, which I do. I absolutely do. I'm looking forward to consuming Valhalla on autopilot. Yeah. Like, I'm tentatively, quite looking forward to that game. It's out on next gen as well, which is interesting. I think they gave a release date for that. Let me look in my notes here.
November 17th. I remember that. November 17th.
There you go. So that's kind of an interesting little hint at like when the next gen consoles are coming out, I guess. I mean, they've both said
we
holiday.
Knew about then.
Yeah. But I guess that means we can expect a like late October, early November launch title sort of vibe, something like that.
Were you going to be buying a new console at launch?
Yeah, I got the PS4 on launch day, and I don't know how much of a good idea that was, but I mean, we've got the whole like more of a focus on backwards compatibility next gen. Like I have a PS4 Pro and an Xbox One X.
Oh, very nice. I only have the base models.
I kind of go where whatever seems like the best kind of tech and value proposition is at the time. So like I kind of migrated to the One X because it was running games better for 4K. So I went there for a while. The PS5 I'm probably going to nab first, and I'm thinking I'll probably end up grabbing one at launch. And I'll probably get the Series X kind of at a later date. So
yeah, I think
hopefully with backwards compatibility, less of a content drought at launch, some cross-gen stuff as usual.
I don't think they're going to have that many games at launch. From what I've seen, I think the only game I'm really like, I need to get a PlayStation for this, is going to be the new Horizon Forbidden West, which obviously just looks like smashing.
Demon's Souls.
And the Demon's Souls remaster.
Demon's Souls remake.
Sorry, looks very, very good as well.
Looks fucking hype.
I'm down for that. Big FromSoft fan. Bloodborne is probably my favorite game ever, so I'd like that. I'd love a Bloodborne 2.
Hell yeah.
I don't understand why they don't do Bloodborne 2. It's just so much money left on the table. Like, that game would just sell like hotcakes. But whatever, man. FromSoft are gonna do FromSoft.
Yeah, I mean, Demon's Souls doesn't even have like a launch window reported yet. They haven't even said like 2021 as a general thing. They've just said like, hey, this is happening. So, you can't bank on it as any kind of like thing to get you through that like launch drought for a console. But I'm thinking I'll probably get a PS5 around launch if I can.
How long do the prices take to drop for consoles? Like,
God, I'm not sure. Maybe you'd start to see some drops maybe in like a year or two. I'm not really sure, man. I tend to be a bit of an early adopter.
Yeah, I've never bought a console at launch, but I might. I think I'm going to get the PlayStation 5 at launch, and then the new Xbox like 2 years, or like maybe like a year or two in, because for a start, I love Games Pass. Like, I play my Xbox all the time just for Games Pass.
Likewise.
And also because Xbox are doing that, like nearly every single game that is coming out on next gen is also available on last gen, which
the back compat is way better on Xbox. Like that would be a huge reason for me to get an Xbox first, is like knowing that I could play any game from my current library probably at a better frame rate, like more consistent. Like if it's a 4K 60 game and it doesn't quite reach 4K, doesn't quite reach 60 FPS, it will be locked next gen. Like that's nice. I have less faith in Sony for that. But
Sony are always very forward looking, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's good in the sense that like their developers are going to be focusing on next gen, so you're not going to have any limitations on the games where they have to like design for both, which is obviously going to take away from like maybe the snazziness of a game. But at the same time, people's like PlayStation 4 libraries are now worth a lot of money. Like it's been 6 or 7 years. We have like
absolutely
hundreds, if not thousands of pounds worth of games like for these consoles, and for them to just not exist or exist in a very limited capacity, I just don't think it's good enough anymore. Like it needs, and to be fair, they have said they've been investing in PS4 backwards compatibility with the 5. Anyway, we are getting off topic.
We are
slightly.
We are.
So,
but either way, I am looking forward to some Ubisoft stuff with like slightly nicer lighting, slightly shinier reflections. At next gen, that would be nice,
and some still dog shit looking character models because
oh yes, dog shit faces. That's what we like,
and bad lip syncing. So like,
indeed,
probably the highlight for me, and the one that I am actually really looking forward to, and the one that looks the least Ubisofty is probably Watch Dogs Legion. I think that one's got the most like interesting new stuff kind of going on. I think it's obviously it's set in London. Like we both pretty familiar with London, been from England,
absolutely,
and having played a lot of gigs there. But especially in Camden, which is like I know a big setting in the game, and also like
I was literally about to say their kind of rundown Camden vibe looks quite cool. To be honest, I'm here for it.
I've been to a gig or two in Camden and played a gig or two in Camden for many times. So Camden's like for people who like live in other countries, Camden is kind of the weird alternative rock center of London, where like tattoos, piercings, like emo, rock, punk, metal, this kind of music, these kind of
cybergoths. Don't forget the cybergoths,
man. And then they have they have Cyberdog, which is like this kind of like daytime club / shop, and they have the markets there. The markets are like it's one of the best places in London. It's really really cool. And then in the Watch Dogs, they've put this kind of new futuristic version. It looks pretty faithfully recreated from what I could see.
It does, like watching that footage kind of had a bit of a uncanny valley vibe about it. Like, oh, I know that place. Like, that's weird.
Really cool though. I was like, I've been in that street many times. Like, I know where that alley leads and where that goes, and like, it'll be cool to be in a game and like know your way around it even before you've even played that level.
Yeah, people have said about I think like Watch Dogs 1 that like was it Chicago that they did for that one? I think it was. It was either like Chicago or Seattle. Either way, I've heard people saying that it was like a really accurate representation of the city, and that they could kind of navigate based on their knowledge of the city, which is really cool.
That's crazy, man. That's cool.
Yeah. So I'm kind of looking forward to applying that to this London version for Watch Dogs.
I love London as well as a place. Like I lived there for like 2 years, and it's just honestly, it's very like it's not for everybody, but like to see it in game would be really really cool. So I'm looking forward to that. They have this, I guess their gimmick is like you can play or recruit any NPC. Yeah, making them not an NPC.
Yeah, I mean they showed off that mission where you kind of approach it from like various angles as different characters, and I got kind of little shades of like the recent Hitman games from it.
Yeah, I can see
just
that.
In the amount of options and kind of ways that you could tackle it, and that's pretty cool because I don't feel like Watch Dogs really has like fulfilled its potential yet, and I think this one might be the one to do it.
Oh yeah, the first one was a massive disappointment to me, and it's obviously it's obviously quite well known for being a disappointment because they had the E3 presentation where it looked impressive for like now. Like if you release that now, you'd be like, yeah, that's like a current gen like type of title. Yeah. And then it came out and it looked nothing like that. Like the downgrade was so severe, which really, really, really hampered the game's reputation. And
then on PC, you could turn it all on with like a config file change of like one value or something. Like it was just a 0 to a 1, and all of a sudden the game looked like 1,000 times better. It was pretty funny.
And then they had 2, which I think quite a lot of people liked, but didn't really land like. It's got a decent size following too. I know people that like it. Yeah, I skipped it too. I know people that do like it, but I wasn't about to go back to Ubisoft.
I heard some good buzz about it though. Like the people that liked it seemed to really like it, and it was on my list for maybe a slow period of the year. Maybe I'll pick it up on the cheap, and I just kind of never got around to it.
Yeah, I played a demo of it. It was alright. It was pretty good. I wasn't that interested in Legion until, well, I kind of was. I was on the fence with it because like neither of us are particularly a fan of the series, so I knew that I didn't really like the series going into it. But I was never like anti Watch Dogs. I was always just kind of like, But this, as we've gone,
I just wanted to see them do it right. Really, like the whole kind of setting and tone of Watch Dogs. It feels like they've been trying to find what Watch Dogs like is. This entire time, like Watch Dogs 1 was like kind of edgy, like I'm the protagonist, I'm edgy, and then 2 was like hipster, exactly, like long duffel coat, edgy guy. And then 2 was like hipster hackers, and I'm like, I'm not really into that either. And then this one kind of seems like they might have nailed the like hacker meets like social paranoia and all that kind of stuff. Like it's all kind of blending together.
V for Vendetta kind of thing.
That and the gameplay seems to finally be in a place where it can kind of justify itself existing alongside other open world games. Like they've got variety in how you can approach missions, which is sorely lacking in the first one. I mean, I can't speak for the second.
How long has it been since Watch Dogs 2 released as well? Quite a while, I think. Like 3 or 4 years?
2-3 years, something like that.
Okay, maybe 3 years since Watch Dogs 2. But I feel like they've been developing this one for quite a while. Which I think Ubisoft games sorely need. Like I know that they don't start the process of developing the next game as they release one game, like they overlap each other. But I still feel like a lot of Ubisoft games could just do with like 2 or 3 more years in the oven to really just innovate a little bit and just kind of get rid of some of that homogenizing. But I think they look like they've nailed it, and from the impressions that I've seen on YouTube and people that were given access to it, people who are not massive Ubi fans either, all seem quite convinced with this one. So like I think this is the one to watch, I reckon. Yeah,
I'm cautiously optimistic for it. Like again, I've kind of wanted to see Watch Dogs become what it was always meant to become, or for it to find its footing and its style and its kind of gameplay hook. And they've always been they've been there at like the sidelines, like kind of latching onto little things that might be compelling. But for this game, like kind of hacker hitman seems plus a potential kind of John Wick style guy as well. Like the hitman, he was just pure John Wick. Like his animations, the way he was taking guys down, straight up just John Wick. I like that. Granny with a taser, I like that. That's cool.
I like the
pisshead Cockney lads, liked him as well.
Yeah. Oh, there's going to be so many bad Cockney accents in this. I can't wait.
Oh yes, that was actually one of the things I took a note about was
bad Cockney accents.
Not necessarily the Cockney accents, but more like the endless one-liners that all the characters were kind of spouting. I suppose because like they're not built-up characters, they're NPCs that you can take control of, so they have to kind of inject some personality via them like quipping to themselves.
Yes,
and it was kind of doing my fucking head in, honestly. I really hate stuff like that when like NPCs don't shut up in games. Like I don't know if you ever played Dragon's Dogma, but you have like some like NPCs that follow you around and they just never ever shut up, and I hated it. Final Fantasy 15.
That is actually a problem they've probably got to contend with, because like in a game like The Last of Us or like Red Dead, the really slow burn, you get like many hours with these characters, so you can build them up dead slowly. Like you can have them like really human. But if you've got every NPC in London, supposedly, is differently voiced and a different person and has their own unique storylines, and you can just interact with any one of them, they've got to be quite come and go and quite interesting very quickly, which means that like Derek can't just be Derek. Derek's got to be like Derek boy. Yeah, he's got to be a lad. He's got to have some fucking lines, geezer.
They've got to kind of make them all kind of caricatures, right? I think how they're going to deal with this. I think they're going to deal with this like as a story thing by making the kind of villains and the people in like DedSec who are like giving you the missions extra charismatic. Like they had two main villains or 3 or something like that. They had the PMC guy, they had the bad Cockney lady, bit of a kind of funny coding there,
maybe.
like. Yeah, like, oh, she's a gangster, so she's a cockney, and she's really violent. Bit, like, lame, but at the same time, could be really entertaining to watch on screen. So, maybe they're making up for the lack of character for the player characters by making the villains, like, extra extravagant and kind of using that as the focus point for the story. Like, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they deal with it.
Writing to be very good. I think Far Cry is probably the best their writing gets. Like, in terms of writing a compelling villain, they had is it Voss?
Yeah, I mean,
he was pretty charismatic, and like they had the Far Cry 5 where they had the Joseph, what's his name? Did you play Far Cry 5? Not to get on.
I played Far Cry 5. I didn't finish it. I liked it, but
the Jared Leto looking Christian dude in that, he was like kind of quite well written, and they had some relatively interesting like dialogue there. But yeah, I've always found the writing in Ubisoft not great. Like they could definitely do with like some of the people from other games, like more narrative focused games, coming on board and just like rewriting these characters. So hopefully Watch Dogs is not too cheesy and actually quite interesting in like the narrative department, and like not just full of fucking boring, like, well, not boring, but just like eye-rolling one-liners where you're like, oh, he's a Cockney grandma and he's got some fucking liners.
Hey, go on, Cockney. Yeah, like if they can kind of sidestep that and actually like make it kind of compelling, that'd be cool. But I'm not holding my breath, I must admit. It looks like a good gameplay-focused like systems game though, which is cool.
It does seem quite systematic, that's true, and there seems like a lot of interaction between outcomes and situations, different approaches to different scenarios. Obviously, you got the whole hacker thing, so you can obviously approach that in like many different ways. And then, like, from what I saw, each NPC has like their own recruitment set of missions. So you like find one that you like, say the granny, and then like you obviously have to find the way to like initiate some kind of contact. And then like apparently people were playing it, and it wasn't just like one mission where you just like go do an errand for them and then they're in. It was like 4 or 5, 6 different missions.
So you kind of got to drag them in like slowly over time.
Yeah, which I thought was quite cool. Like, I mean, it fleshes it out a bit and makes it a bit more realistic. Because, like, generally speaking, like if I go like drop off a letter for someone and then I'm like, hey, like come join my hacker cult. Usually the answer probably no. Like,
you go away, you fucking weirdo.
Exactly. So like that would be cool if there's some like a bit more real, and obviously it's not realistic, but a bit more realism to the way that you like bring these characters into your gang.
Do you know if there's like a permadeath system for the?
There is, yeah.
The recruitees, really?
Yes, you can. If you bring Velma or whatever your grandma's called in, and Velma fucks it up, like Velma's dust. But there's probably another Velma out there somewhere who's like.
That's kind of cool because I mean I don't know if you ever played the XCOM reboot games much, but I played the shit out of Enemy Unknown one summer. Yeah, fair enough. But one of the cool things about those games is that like you'd get attached to your squaddies just because they'd been with you for a while and you've taken them through, various missions, and then you'd have one mission where like half of your guys like unceremoniously get fucked up and then they're just gone. They're just gone forever unless you save scum your way through the mission, which like I did do a lot of to rescue my guys. So seeing that apply to like Watch Dogs could be really cool. Like you recruit someone, you kind of get attached to them just by playing as them for a while, and then you die and they're gone. Gotta get used to someone new now. Sorry.
I like that, and especially given like I think this is probably to encourage you to maybe try other people. Given how many NPCs there are and how recruitable apparently everybody is, if you just got like 2 or 3 recruits and they just kept coming back to life, there may be the temptation to just only play as them and never get anyone new.
Sure.
So I guess that's to try and push you down the route of like trying
they're gonna
people.
Yeah, force your hand, make you try kind of different characters. Yeah, different gameplay styles.
So that's Watch Dogs Legion. It looks really cool. I'm actually quite up for that. I'm still obviously a little bit tentative because it's Ubisoft, and I always take Ubisoft things with just a bit of a grain of salt. But
and it's Watch Dogs.
And it's Watch Dogs, and their track record has been mixed. Okay, so it's not been like it's not been smash out the park. It's not been a complete disaster. It's like I think this might be the one where it kind of
cautiously optimistic. Yeah.
And then obviously they closed the presentation with no gameplay, but like a cinematic Very political, if we want to talk about the whole quote-unquote
apolitical Ubisoft strikes again, right?
Apolitical Ubisoft went right in there with this like brutal dictatorship in like a very tranquil-looking, warm country with the guy from, I can't remember what the series he's from, but he's a popular actor. It rendered in beautiful CGI, might I add. Like, his CGI animation was just outstanding.
Was he the guy who played fucking Gus in Breaking Bad, potentially? It looked kind of like him. Yeah.
Might have been. But everyone was stoked to have this guy in. He looks so familiar, but it's been a long time since I've seen Breaking Bad or anything like that. But yeah, he's like with his son. He gives him a grenade. He fucking takes the pin out and makes his son keep holding it.
And he uses it as a tool to like philosophize about fascism and control, and I'm like, okay then, sure.
I don't know how quickly a grenade goes off when you remove the bit holding it in place. Like, if you were to take the pin out, keep your thumb there, I don't know if like that instantly explodes or you've got like a split second.
No, so long as you're holding the thing down, once you've taken the pin out, you've got as long as you want. It's only once you let the hammer go.
What I'm saying is, I don't know how long between the hammer being let go and explosion. Like, is it a second? Is it instantaneous?
It's about 5 seconds, 4 or 5 seconds.
Oh, that's fine then. Okay, because I thought you just killed his son.
Yeah. No. That's what they call a cooking grenade. You take the pin out, you take the hammer off, and you say like 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, and it will explode kind of basically on impact.
Yeah. So obviously, the big dictator dude comes in. He gives his son a grenade.
Yep.
Kid takes guy takes the pin out, gives it to his son. Son's like, "Oh shit, Dad, why have you done this?"
Yeah. I like that this is his first exposure to his dad being a fucking lunatic, given how the outside world looks. He's like there just like making his model truck like, la 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 la, I'm sweet and innocent. Oh, Dad, now you're going to traumatize me for the rest of my life. Okay.
Dad's like, you need to put this shit away and grow up, son, and learn how the real world
is. Time to be a man now.
So he takes him outside and he shows him whatever country they're in. It looks like somewhere like Cuba or kind of one of these places.
Yeah, some pseudo-Cuba.
It's like everyone's revolting, we've got these like sort of protesters and like, again, no political statements, nothing about what's currently going on in society. This is
perhaps it's the protesters who are wrong. Everyone is wrong except me.
It's just existing within its own bubble and is definitely not trying to make any statements on anything, even though it's heavily aping like
completely
heavily aping like modern society, but whatever, cool. So like everyone's fighting and like throwing grenades and they're like, down with dictatorships. We don't want to be dictated to anymore. Rah. And the dad's like with the son with the grenade. He's like, basically, you've got to come down on these people like a ton of bricks, otherwise they won't respect you. And the implied thing is that the son's gonna like let go of the grenade, blow the fuck out of these protesters.
Sure. Yeah.
Boom, like rule with an iron fist, and then like Far Cry 6, the logo fades in, and we go, ooh. New Far Cry.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yet more Far Cry.
Yeah, I mean, Far Cry has this thing where like they base the whole theme of each game around like, here we have some incredibly charismatic villain who has maybe like 2 minutes of screen time in the entire fucking game, and I'm like, you can show me all the fucking CGI and like world building that you want to show me, but like, I know what a Far Cry game is. It's just like, it's Ubisoft open worlding with guns. Clear the outpost, get another gun, clear another. I don't really care.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
yeah, cool setting, cool character, whatever. Like, is that going to mean anything in the game? Probably not.
I enjoyed 5, but again, I feel like if a different studio had done 5, I'd be way more into it than EB. Like,
I couldn't finish it, but like,
neither did I. I like
thought
that
5 was an improvement. I thought 5 was a lot better.
I agree. I think 5 was better, but it wasn't enough to carry me through to the end. But
yeah,
I don't know, man. There's just something about the Far Cry games that is like, you cannot put your finger on why you don't like. Well, for me, I can't put my finger on why I don't like them. Like, they look good, they feel good to play. I like the locations. And they have a gripping storyline. Like, the storyline for 5 was pretty good. I don't like the voiceless, nameless protagonist. This is just a pet peeve of mine. When people are talking to you and they're just doing a fucking monologue and like you're not responding to them, and you just think this is unrealistic. Like, this person will be like, "Hello, why aren't you fucking speaking to me?" But they're just like, "Yeah, well, you know what I mean." But anyway, and they just assume you're involved.
So anyway, go and do the thing.
And they just assume your involvement, like, the best you do is nod or shake your head like a fucking mute. It's just, oh man, say something. Like, I don't know. I would like a Far Cry game personally if you had a protagonist who had a character. I don't care if I don't get to make the choices.
They tried that with 3, didn't they? Like, didn't what was his name? Like Jason Brody. He had a character. He had dialogue. If I remember right.
They did. But maybe like show him in cutscenes and maybe make him interesting.
Yeah.
I think that would.
I don't know,
man.
Be
cool.
Far Cry is a really weird series. Like I'm one of those people that actually played the first one on PC like way back in the day. I basically got a new computer at the time for Far Cry because it was that fucking graphically like wow. You know, it was Crytek. You know, that was how they got started. Was like, here's a crazy sick engine with nice graphics, but kind of game.
I think the old Far Cry's were good for their time. They were doing something relatively new then. But now we're on 6.
They were.
We're on 6 Far Crys. And the DLCs,
honestly,
which are like games in their own right.
The most. Sorry, what were you saying?
Sorry, I just said the fact that we've got 6 of them and we've got the DLCs, which are games in their own right. Like we've got the in-between games like Far Cry Primal and what was the pink one? New Dawn. So really we're on like Far Cry 10.
Something like that, yeah. It was like a 5 DLC that got out of hand, wasn't it, or something?
Basically, yeah, it was. Sorry, go on. I mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, Far Cry as a series as a whole seems like it's kind of split into 2 halves. Like, you have 3 and onwards, and then you have, like, 1 and 2. And 1 and 2 were, like, such different games. They were developed by different people. But 2, I found really compelling, despite it being, like, a very unkind game. Because you had, you know, like, malaria flare-ups, and so much of it was just, like, traveling through outposts, and everyone wanted to fucking kill you all the time. And the game world was like openly hostile to your existence. And I thought that was kind of very compelling and exciting and interesting. And, you know, the fire propagation, well, the Africa... What, sorry?
A lot of people like Primal for those reasons. Far Cry Primal.
Yeah. I mean, I played a little bit of Primal. The only way I could find it in me to enjoy it was to crank the difficulty right up and to kind of treat it like a survival game. But even in that, it was like the progress became too slow, and the end of the game was clearly like 60 hours away, and I just couldn't give a shit. You know, I couldn't finish it.
There must be a reason, like, because this apathy towards Ubisoft games, but especially Far Cry, I notice among quite a lot of people that I talk to, and I just can't really put I can to a degree. But it's almost like on paper I should really like these games, like especially 5. Yeah, I like the setting to 5. It kind of reminds me of like the Days Gone type of like rainy. I've forgotten the name of the place that it's set in, but like this kind of like that kind of place was really up my street, and just like they just kind of don't resonate on some level. There's just something about them that just kind of. This is what I mean about Ubisoft. They're just good. They're never quite.
It's a bit too designed by committee for me.
It
like
is,
I know this is the same with like WATCHDOGS and Assassin's Creed and all that kind of stuff. Like none of it's ever really challenging. But in Far Cry, like I've played a lot of shooters, man. Like I've played a lot of FPS games in my life, and something about the Far Cry games is just really like insultingly easy and shallow. And you know, I've seen these videos on YouTube of like people doing these crazy like. Like they're just doing these videos of like them styling on an outpost, like, you know, they'll just fly out the sky, crossbow 3 dudes in the face while they're still in the air, and it's like, cool, the skill ceiling can go there, but like
I think it's there's so much to do as well. Like it's like, I don't know,
they're too big.
It's like a new you get into a new kind of battle or new enemies like every like 5 minutes in Far Cry. Maybe, and they're kind of similar to the last outpost or the last group of enemies. If they made that really grueling and challenging, that would get old really quickly. But this is the problem, like, more focused games that kind of lead you down a path, something like, you know, like Bloodborne or like the Dark Souls games, or these kind of like, the more like linear games, they can make the enemies more challenging because they know you're going to fight this enemy at this time. But in a massive open world game where you've just got packs of like goons roaming around, like you wouldn't want to go outside of your area or like ever adventure if
every single mook was going to be like a Dark Souls enemy that could kill you. Yeah.
So either they make the world smaller, or they make the enemies less, or they find a way to make it sort of more challenging but less of it, if that makes sense. I don't know.
I feel like the way that they tried to deal with this in Far Cry 5, which I actually thought made some really kind of elegant changes to the formula, was that like 5 kind of ramped up the amount of just like crazy bullshit that was happening around you. I don't know if you noticed that, but like I feel like in Far Cry 5 there was a very high ratio of like crazy bullshit happening at all times. I have this one memory of Far Cry 5, like I'm just walking to a place and a bear comes out of the woods at me on fire, screaming, and he just kind of runs past me, runs across the road, goes through the bushes on the other side, leaving a literal like, you know, like DeLorean trail of fire behind him. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, and I kind of appreciated that about 5 because it never really let you have like dead air. There was no like quiet time in that game. Any quiet time was just to like punctuate before the next AI-driven crazy bullshit happened.
And then they stepped that up with New Dawn as well. I think New Dawn was meant to be 5. Well, New Dawn was meant to be 5, like on, not even on steroids, like on acid. Everything was weird and like pink and trippy and like it kind of had that Rage 2 like aesthetic. But that was meant to be even crazier, which I think it probably works for Far Cry, and it definitely makes a lot of like a lot of stories.
Well, that's the other aspect
funny.
of Far Cry that they keep pushing is like Far Cry is really psychedelic and psychological. At some points, the protagonist will do drugs. Ooh. And like, you know, this is a gaming podcast, but like, I've done plenty of drugs, man. Like, don't tell me that's how taking acid looks. Like, this is not. It just seems like pandery and like lame and weird. And I'm, So, yeah, I've got very mixed feelings on the franchise
like
as a whole.
Drugs, there would be 5 hours where you just don't talk to anyone or do anything and just feel shit
or chat
Netflix.
Shit for hours on end. Look, mate, have you got, you know, like, just shut up now. Cool.
I don't think a come down represented in gaming form would be that
would be fun.
Received.
No.
But yeah, so that's Far Cry 6. It looks. I mean, I can't even say what it looks like because we've literally not seen anything.
It looks like a fucking CGI trailer. Like, we've seen a really good looking movie about a guy who is a bad parent and should not have grenades in the house. Yeah. I will say this actually about the intro, like the kind of whole like the kind of music video style, like it was almost like a James Bond intro. It was gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Absolutely amazing.
That.
Like the kind of red disc motif going into like a record, into a blood pool, into this, into that. Like I thought that was fantastic.
It was very much like a Netflix introduction.
Yeah, dude, if the game was like half as interesting to play as that was to look at, maybe I'd actually like Far Cry a bit more. But
the problem is
I couldn't help but feel from the whole thing that like it was just going to be a bunch of like wasted potential and a wasted setting once again.
This is the problem with that, especially Ubisoft, who are known for this. Their marketing department and the guys who put like the visuals together for the marketing and the video, they're so skilled.
Yeah.
Like they're great at making their games look great in these small snapshots, and like, but that's not going to be in the game. Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
I'm not saying
WATCHDOGS.
Yeah, or like
WATCHDOGS
the original WATCHDOGS.
Cyber thingy. They had good like CG videos as well, like really kind of well filmed, well done CG films.
Yes.
And then the games, and you're just like, oh, it's an open world game. Cool.
But I was totally with you on that. I actually made a little note about that because I'm currently editing a music video in the style of like a James Bond thing because obviously we're in lockdown.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to be like CG and kind of like you know, these elements that you can get hold of in lockdown. And from that perspective, I was just like, wow, this is like a masterclass in how to do something really interesting with like melding one image into another and like cool looking like smoke in the water and like the wheel with the the wheel in the with the smoke and everything like that looked and the trailer looked good. You know, it was a great looking trailer. It's an interesting concept, but this is another problem as well, just to like wrap up. But I feel like if any of these trailers had come from a new studio with some new IP, it would be like, wow, that looks interesting. But you know what you're getting with Far Cry, so there's not much room for that in this. Like,
it takes all the excitement and the intrigue out of it. Yeah,
literally just saying like, that. Yeah,
you know that this is just going to be an open world game that doesn't really have much substance, and that the CGI trailer will have more substance than the entire fucking game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've probably been towards the more negative side, but like we will probably play all three, and I'm sure we'll get some enjoyment out of at least one or two of them.
Yeah, like absolutely. I mean, Valhalla, man, I'm pretty damn excited for that. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I want that game. I
am looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to what for me, Watch Dogs, I'm probably leaning towards. But like after the showcase, yeah, I am looking forward to Valhalla. Am I gonna play the full game to the end? Probably not. Like, I'll play like 15, 20 hours and get bored. But yeah, that's the Ubisoft conference. We're like banging an hour now, I think. Yeah, banging an hour. That was good. Good timing. So yeah, that's been our Ubisoft look over from the Ubisoft. What was it? Ubisoft Forward. That's what they call it. Apparently
Ubisoft Forward.
There'll be another one coming soon where we get to look at some more gameplay. So that'd be cool. I think we'll probably review all those games that we talked about on the Invicta gaming channel and obviously the magazine, blog, website, all those places. And I'll hopefully get Gareth in to talk with me about some of these when they come out. If you're cool with that, Gareth?
Of course, always.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much, guys. This has been the Invicta Gaming Podcast. Bye.
Bye.